May 1st, we're at zero closed loans for the month, right? Yeah. And you forget the month turnover and you get so into it. And then you're like, all right, every month is a start over. But at least with our business, what I learned very early on in the purchase market, you have to treat every deal that it's going to lead you to your next deal.
Welcome to The Growth Mindset, the podcast for ambitious real estate and mortgage professionals. Hosted by Adam Crosley and Riddle, this show dives into entrepreneurial strategies, sales techniques, and mindset hacks designed to fuel your career growth. Get ready to learn from top producers, gain actionable insights, and start your journey towards success. Here's your hosts, Adam and Rick.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. I'm your co-host, Riddle, along with
Adam Crosley.
And today we got a special guest. I'm really excited to have him on. I've actually been bugging him for weeks to come on, and we were able to finally get on his very busy schedule. He has a newborn, as well as a very successful mortgage business. Blake Hyatt, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Adam and Rick. Excited to be on with you guys.
Yeah. So, tell us how's everything going in Timonium, right? Timonium, Maryland.
So we're right in that Maryland market, which is interesting right now. We're based right in central, I guess it would be central Maryland, a little bit north of Baltimore, a lot of it north of DC, but we're seeing, like everybody right now, we're kind of into that spring rush, but we're dealing with a little bit of new issues that we've never dealt with before, with a lot of government layoffs, a lot of people quitting their jobs in the middle of the loans with us. So we've always been extremely fortunate because of our surroundings. A lot of government contractors live in Maryland. So that's a nice little curveball that we've never dealt with, in this market with that type of change with the spring market.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that. Your market is such a probably influx of government employees, right? I think Fannie is located not too far from you, right? So
right in DC. We get a lot of people that live, north of Baltimore or north of DC. They'll commute down. You can take the train from Baltimore and be in DC within like 40 minutes. So we're dealing with that, and then a lot of people relocating to Baltimore during COVID when they didn't have to go into downtown DC anymore. So we're seeing a lot of people now have to go back into DC, maybe relocate from like northern Baltimore County to central. So we have a place called Pasadena, which is a straight shot into DC. So we're seeing a lot of movement, but we're still seeing a lot of multiple offer situations. But I would be lying to you if I said I didn't see a pullback in our pre-approvals from like government employees and government contractors, which usually made up about like 10 to 15% of our business.
Wow. Okay. Well, so why don't you tell listeners? I mean, obviously, I know you pretty well. I think you and Adam are kind of meeting for the first time. Talk to me. How did you get in the mortgage business?
I got into the mortgage business. My dad had a call center. Not a call center. He had a big mortgage company between like 2022 to 2006. And I just enjoyed listening to those guys and seeing them be on the phone. And it was definitely the Wolf of Wall Street scene where everybody's kind of yelling at each other, calling people. Subprime days, I guess, and a lot of people can relate to those. And I enjoyed always watching him being on the phone, structuring calls, being on with customers, helping people get to the end goal of buying a house. So when I graduated from Towson, and I'm like looking at the clock on my phone, right, or on my computer to say 2014 is when I graduated. I started a mortgage branch from there. After doing it through college, from like the sidelines, being more support loan officer, admin. We had a couple rate drops while I was in college. So I was able to do some streamlines, but full-time really dove into it. 2014 became the branch manager right off the bat, and slowly just built. I think a lot of times I got super lucky that I was never in a position where I was like, oh my God, I need to make money this month. So I was always able to really run the mortgage business very, as like an entrepreneur, keep the money in the business, grow the business, invest in the business, and then pull my money out later as we're growing. So 2014 is when I started, hired a buddy of mine, who's still, huge supporter of ours. He's out of the mortgage business now. That was like my number one hire, my buddy, Adam Hearn. And then over the years, we added a processor, which was my brother. You can kind of see a trend. I'm like hiring everybody within my world. My brother is still my processor, who now manages 3 support staff, which is awesome for him. And then we just consistently just kept growing over the years, to now I'm super stoked. May of 2025, not 2022, not 2021. We had a record breaking month, helped 40 customers last month, 43 customers to be exact, get into homes just from our branch, which beat all my COVID numbers. And it was a huge, huge push for us and what we've been building the last couple years. And we're like really starting to hit a stride, even in a challenging market, which we're in. But story short, I've been doing this since, I guess I'm on my 11th full year of doing mortgages. It's actually I remember starting April of 2024 full time. So I just went over my 11th year.
Wow. So let me ask you, so did you work for your dad like in high school and through college? Is that
so I would say high school, and sorry, I kind of jumped over that, but high school I was more of like the handing out the leads, going in during the summer, like the summer internship. I got to do the bare minimum for my dad so he doesn't make me get a real job.
Right.
And then college was when I started really seeing like, wow, I can make some money here. My dad actually saw me have a little bit of success. So he pulled me into his office and was like, hey, like, I love that you're here. I love that you're making money, because I was making him money too at the time and taking him off the phone. And he said, but you can only work here if you don't quit school. Because he kind of saw the writing on the wall, like, shit, he might quit. He might stop going to Towson just to be in the mortgage business full time. So I said, all right, totally cool. And started producing. I think I was doing like $1 million a month while in college part time, because I would just sit there after 5 o'clock. They drop a mailer. This was when they reduced the MIT from like the FHA mortgage insurance premium from like 1.2 to 0.85 or whatever that big change was. And then you had Brexit. So I was just answering the phones all day. VA streamlines, going to people's houses, getting them to sign their docs. And I really enjoyed it. And then obviously rates went up. And I was like, wow, I got to really make sure that I'm not like focusing in on business just to be a refi guy.
Yeah.
So that's when I started saying, all right, I graduated from Towson. I don't have to pretend like this is my full-time job anymore. I'm fully locked in. I'm not telling customers I have a meeting, but I'm really sitting in class anymore. So I started really going after a lot of realtors who are still extremely close to me in this market, getting business from them, learning the art of the transaction. We could call it the art of the transaction, of not treating a deal like it's your last deal, but treating it like it's your forever deal. You got to make sure those customers are happy and they're going to want to come back to you. I know this is a very tough industry. I was like, man, we had our best month ever. You're expecting like confetti and everything like that. And then I log onto my computer that morning to review the pipeline. I'm like, wow, May 1st, we're at 0 closed loans for the month, right? Yeah. And you forget the month turnover and you get so into it. And then you're like, all right, every month is a start over. But at least with our business, what I learned very early on in the purchase market, you have to treat every deal that it's going to lead you to your next deal. And a lot of people I like the term commission breath. That you don't want to have commission breath and make your customers feel like they're just your token. And I learned this because like it was super awkward during 2017 or 2018, 19 when I started calling all my customers to do refis, right? And I hated it because it wasn't that like I don't love calling my customers. I just didn't have that setup where I was calling them, doing the concierge phone calls after closing. And it clicked to me. Like I was calling them like, hey, I want to refi you. And they're like, oh, Blake, good to hear from you. And I'm like, oh shit, man, it kind of feels bad. This was like the first time I spoke to them since I did their purchase. So I make it my mission to keep in touch with everybody after closing, whether it be text message, phone call. I keep up with my realtors. I talk to probably every realtor that sends us business at least once, twice a week, maybe every 2 weeks. I'm on the phone with everybody. And I just live in this world where Blake's a resource, but he's doing a really good job during the loan because that's going to be what leads me to the next loan. It's kind of hard for an agent to say we don't want to send business to Blake Hyatt anymore when they're getting raving reviews and they just have fun in the process with us. And that's always my goal whenever we're doing transactions, but also when I'm coaching my loan officers on how to gain referral business. It's more about just get into the world with your agents.
Well, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, because you're not just going to get the refi from that client. You're also going to open. You're going to open up to their network, and even if rates don't come down, the average person knows 300 other people. So if you do a great job for them, odds are they're going to refer other people to you, even if rates are still high.
Exactly. And I know I segued out of it too, Rick, but then to answer your question, as I went into the purchase market and I started gaining success, that's when I grew the branch, the operations. I really got into the mindset of like looking at our branch as like, where can we save minutes during the transaction? How can we be more operational based? And I'm lucky because my brother, another guy who you know, Vinny, they're just such intelligent processors that we've been able to like create this process where all of our loan officers have 24-hour support if they need help fixing something in Encompass, a loan question. Then when the file goes into processing, we got our processor picking it up so our loan officers can stay on the phone, and we have someone who reaches out to the listing agents and the buyer's agents for them just to keep them. So we're creating the system because I nerd out in loans. We've been evolving based off of what we started on, which was do really well for the customer, do really well for the realtor, all the referral partners, and then close the transaction and then try to build off of that.
Well, I think a couple of things well, first of all, it's amazing. Obviously COVID was, for a lot of people, a lot of listeners, and everyone, the three of us, was great years, right? The 2020, 2021 in terms of business. Obviously, it's weird when we talk about COVID. A lot of people struggled through it, and the mortgage industry thrived through it. So it's kind of weird. It's like, what, the COVID years are so great. But it's funny, right? So you had your best month this past month, so you've obviously continued your growth mindset, if you will. What would you attribute that continued success or even greater success when others are not, they're probably looking back at the glory years of 2020 and 2021, and you're coming off your best month, in 11 years.
Yeah. Well, we're doing it with more people. Right. It takes, we're definitely doing it with more people. My volume's only down. I'll get up to around 70 million this year personally on my business. So then we have the branch. My best COVID year was like 104. So I'm down 30%, but I'm super proud of that because I give out a lot of my referrals to my team now. And what I've built is in the last year, we've hired 4 loan officers who do over 20 million. So that's been a huge recruit for us, is bringing really, really good people on board to work with our really, really good people that are already here. Like, it's wild, the growth that we've had, but also how happy everybody is internally at the branch. And what I've done to make everybody happy is I took the process and procedures that I built during COVID, and I've given them to my loan officers. Like, we had to have these think, Rick, like I had 2 processors and an assistant, and we were closing $12 million a month, right? Like, we had to communicate, we had to grow, and we took those processes and procedures. And then I'm recruiting loan officers off of that now. I'm saying, hey, this is how I do business. This is how I communicate. I want to give you this. I want to help you guys grow your business. And this is how I think you could do it because this is how I do it. And everybody's like, oh my God, you communicate like this and you do that. And you have automatic drips that go out here. And you have this person calling the listing agents. Like, how could I not succeed here? And that's why we're able to attract in right now, I think, awesome loan officers that are bringing, a lot to the table for us. But the cool thing is they're all team oriented too. Like they're joining in, they're meshing in. We have loan officers training other loan officers. We have loan officers mentoring other loan officers, and it all around is just a really fun environment for us to be in. Fully growth, and I'm sitting back like, my team's taking over. We just hired a third processor to come in and help us. Promoted one of our other processors up, and I'm like sitting back like, I got nothing to do today besides prospect because everybody's doing their job. Now, obviously, there's days where it's like everything kind of hits you in the face and you gotta, swim to the surface. But it's more about I was patient. I built the ship, and I knew that ship would run just off of my volume. And when it was my volume and I was staffed up the way that I was, I was making a little bit less and there was more money that I was probably missing out on. But I believe that we could recruit off of that. And ever since then, people have been flocking to us. And I'm getting text messages of people saying like, hey, what's going on over there? How are you getting this person to join? And it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Well, it's also a great culture of attraction. How many LOs are in your branch now, Blake?
We have 8 LOs on the branch now.
Awesome, dude. Great job.
Yeah. So
awesome.
we've added quite a bit since November or October. We had our first big recruit in. And then it's kind of like snowballed ever since then. And now we're, having a lot of success growing our operations staff because we felt like we were a little, of course, Justin and Vin and Savannah, that, they all crushed it. And Andy and Kathy, they all crushed it last month, and Terry, but we felt like we had to add a couple more people in. So we've been adding more operations staff in. So that way I feel like I'm a teacher where I'm like selling my private school, like, hey, for every one teacher, we only have 4 students, right? I'm trying to have that same mindset for our sales side, because as we're bringing on loan officers and loan officers assistants, we actually call them operations liaisons at the branch, because we're bringing on really good people. We're not bringing on, like, my junior LOs are not, they're former processors, they're former junior underwriters, like they're former operations managers. We're not bringing on that kid that wants to be a loan officer and I'm going to make him my junior for a week. Like we're bringing on, I'm talking talented people. And it shows when you actually can hire them. We're trying to go 3 for 1 right now, maybe 2 for 1. Where we have 2 loan officers assigned to 1 operations liaison. And I'm trying to get each operations liaison to cover about, $30 to $40 million in business.
That's awesome. So, it's funny, as you guys both know, and I'll just do my shameless plug. There's I've authored a book, Use the Ladder, which is 16 quotes that dominate sales. And I actually want to, as I hear your story, and this is not in the book, but it makes me think of a quote from a great movie, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Right. Yeah. And I think about, you built a great business for yourself. Then in that, you built great infrastructure to support your business. And then you realize, wow, I've got a marketable asset here just by building this great infrastructure. I mean, your concierge service, which we'll get to in a second, but you built it. And now you're attracting unbelievable talent because they want to be a part of that system, right? So it's you built the dream stadium, in Iowa, actually in Timonium, Maryland.
Yep.
You built the stadium, and now people are coming and want to play on your team, which I think is fantastic. And I love that your thought is build something with operational excellence and stay in contact with your customers. It's interesting, right? You closed 43 loans, or I don't know if you or the branch closed 43 loans, and if Adam is numbers are correct, the average person knows 300 people. That's 1,200. You've just put out 1,200 tentacles on top of that, right?
Yep.
So there's going to be more business on top of it, as long as you continue to, provide value. And so I think that is awesome. So why don't you share a little bit? I know when you and I worked together, you had brought up the concierge as a post-closing stay in touch. Do you want to kind of touch a little bit about what you're doing with that?
Yeah, so we do have a concierge team that does call post closing. We do the 7-day check and call, 30-day, and then 60-day. We've made a lot of changes as we've been growing. We've been shifting people around, and one of the shifts has been, hey, for the average loan officer, I would love to have a full team on the back end calling former clients. So we have 2 people that generally will call through for the loan officers and make sure that the loan officers are getting the 7-day phone calls. We do that because I really want to make sure we're getting a review. Yeah. So I've really focused on having to make sure when I recruit a loan officer and I'm like, hey, we're going to call the 7 days and we're going to call the 30 days, but the 6 month is on you. You got to be the one checking in with those customers, and then you set up your annual mortgage review for them. But I tell them, I want the touch point, because that way 6 months from now, you should really be talking to your customers about the refi, right? You think average loan officer closes 5 to 7 loans a month. They should be able to take 1 hour of their day and be able to call 5 to 7 of their clients from the month prior, right? And just 6 months down the road. So first 7-day phone call, Rick, what I'm doing is I'm having the concierge call, make sure they fill out a review for us, whether it be Google. I know you guys use social survey, right? So you can make sure that they're filling out the social surveys. And then for us, it's more of, we like the internal. We're big on internal reviews. So we have them fill out an internal review, and then we have them do a Google review. But then the other thing that we do, which is a nice little split, is we have them also call the buyer's agent and the listing agent to see if maybe we can set up some coffee meetings, and then that way I could steer the lead back to the loan officers if they can get a hold of the listing agents. And then 30-day phone call, it's more like, hey, here's where you're making your mortgage payment to. This is just us cradling the customer to make sure they know who they're making their mortgage payments to once we sell their servicing. And then the 6 month, I'm having that's thrown on through our CRM. It's thrown on the LO's system to make sure that they're getting the notification to follow up with this borrower in 6 months.
I love it. I mean, I think that so many people in our business, I'll say many people in sales, right? Think of the deal, the transaction as the end. Right? Yeah. I close the customer, and I'm thinking about it, whether it's car sales, whether it's which is a business I came from, but any sales job, a lot of times they're always looking for the new customer, right? And but if you take care of that customer, in our business, the biggest transaction in their life, and you continue to stay in touch with them, it's a lot easier when rates go down. Like you said early on in the podcast, right? You're like, I felt weird calling a customer that I hadn't talked to in years and saying, hey, I was thinking about refinancing. Yeah. Like it felt ingenuine. But if you're staying in touch with them every 3 to 6 months, with something, whether it's like an annual review, a check-in, right? And I like that you've kind of formulated it out, 7, 30, 6, a year annual. You're bringing value to them, staying in touch with them, so they remember who Blake is.
It's so easy, especially in this area, right? Like if you sell a house to a customer, we get a severe rainstorm, right, Rick? Like I text you when the hurricanes and everything are happening, right? Like just check in, do a life check. Hey, any water in the basement? Like I know we just got a severe storm. You just moved in. How you guys doing? Right? Like,
well, it just shows the care.
Yeah, those are the checks that people don't do, and every customer of mine, out of the maybe one does not text message. right? Like
Mhm.
even your older customers now prefer text channel. It was actually something funny. My buddy Christian Yankowski is an awesome referral partner of mine. Goes to me, he's like, dude, you're awesome. But and me and him are talkers. Like me and him will get on the phone. Our wives like laugh at us because we both say like, oh, that guy talks too much. But it's like me and him just both talk too much and we'll stay on the phone with each other for hours. He's like, why don't you text? He's like, text on your follow-up. And I started texting on my follow-up. And it's so much, I get so much done now because I'll text people like, hey, or schedule my calls, and I'm big into time blocking and making sure I'm being and especially because now I want to be home at 5 o'clock every day so I can catch my daughter at the 5 o'clock feed and then get her ready for bed. I haven't missed a bedtime yet. So I love doing that. So it's just being real dedicated with that. But texting's huge. Just utilize the text messaging to check in on people.
A great point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we as salespeople, right, we have to communicate with our clients the way clients want to be communicated to, right? And I think less and less people, sadly, want to be in phone conversations. Blake, I'm with you. I like to talk all day long, right? I like that. I love this podcast because I get to see, Adam's smiling face every week, and I get to see a guest. But you're right. I mean, people want to text. Email was in for a while. I don't think many people. Email has kind of become a spam box of advertisements, right? We use our private emails to sign up for every single thing that requires email, and now I get 4,000 emails a day probably of just junk. So I miss the important ones. But
you use your work email for like your real stuff, and you use your personal email for all the junk and the subscriptions.
Right. To sign up for stuff, right? To get the right. So
my work email gets emptied every day. My personal email's got 10,000 emails. There are 10,000 emails on it.
It's terrible. I was actually embarrassed. My credit card got hacked 2 weeks ago. Well, he's like, we've been emailing you, and I'm like, to what email? She gave me the email. I'm like, oh my God, I don't check my personal.
Oops.
So, but I'm with you, and it all goes back to none of my mindset has ever changed. It's always the transaction. If you do a good job, if you give the customer the 5-star service, I've always believed that like nobody ever goes out of business when they're doing a good job. Right. When you see a business go out.
That's a quote for your new next book there, Rick.
Yeah. You never go out of business if you do a good job. I love it.
And it's just, look, obviously you can have your financial struggles and your mortgage struggles, but if you go and talk to any subprime lender back in 2023 that went out, look, I understand that the rug got pulled out from under them, but like also they couldn't have called any of their former clients, and they didn't have a business that they were probably doing a really good job, right? And I think that in our world today with social media and the way people rally around each other, you got to really work hard to go out of business if your main focus is like, I just want to do a good job for my customers. Look, you might not blow the world up. You might have to be a little bit more careful with your expenses and maybe have a little bit cheaper lease if you don't want to do a lot of loans, especially the way that, cost to cures pop up now, and the cost of credit and just the overall cost of conducting businesses. But like, there's no reason why you should be going out of business.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, right? And we just recently had a podcast a couple of weeks ago about AI, right? And Adam and I were jamming a little bit on AI, and I got a guy that I've known in the business for years reached out to me, and we started debating about AI and the importance of it or the lack of it, and how it's the demise of the loan officer. And he's 57. He's like, look, I'm in 10 years, loan officers are going to be extinct. I said, I don't think so, because people still want personal touch, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Use AI to enhance your business, to make it easier, to make it, to be able to do 43 loans, right? I'm sure there's some automation that you have, right? You couldn't do 43 loans in 2001 when you're handwriting 1003s and meeting everyone face to face and collecting docs and making photocopies and, putting that file together, a big brick of file and dropping it off. But So technology is there, but it's still that personal touch, right? It's still that.
You know where I get a lot of my, like, I have a relationship with a broker where we compete over a lot of online leads, right? A lot of these customers are applying online with the real estate company. They come to us, and it's funny because everybody says AI this and systems that, and you know why people do their mortgages with us? Because they like talking to me and we're local.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the best thing that happened to me was how awesome Rocket Mortgage's Super Bowl commercial was. I can't even begin to tell you how many people started applying with Rocket and then ended up finding their way to us, and then we closed their loan for them. Nobody saw that commercial and said, you know what? I love this commercial. Let me call Rocket Mortgage and leave Blake Hyatt. But what did they do? They went apply with Rocket, and then it trickled down the train. I'm not saying I got a lot of business, but we got one or two deals that I could probably say those people might have applied with us like a week or two after the Super Bowl commercial. And you gain your business that way, right? I take every customer, and my sales pitch is super simple. This is what you get. I'm going to quote you a good rate. I'm going to put my best foot forward, but you're going to get transparency and honesty from me. If you want to shop till your shoes fall off, but just know you can always come back to me and talk about an online quote. But if rate's going to be everything for you, then yeah, I'm sure you can find an online lender that's going to offer a better rate than what I just quoted you. The days of and that's why I'm surprised that a lot of compliance and stuff hasn't rolled back. I do know there's a lot of compliance and protection that ends up costing the customer more money about us overcharging the customers, right? Making sure we're not gouging them for costs. But I don't even know how that would even be possible in today's market. It's so easy just to get a quote for an interest rate, right? Like, if I quoted somebody 7.5 today, they'd be like, well, why am I seeing everywhere? I watched CSNBC this morning. The average rate's 6.75. I'm on Wells Fargo's website. I go to bank rate. I can see it all. It's just, that's the market in the world that we're in. But somehow 70 to 80% of the consumers still want to work with the local guy that gives them good customer service.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I look, I think that now I will quote a quote from use the latter.
Well, I want to hear it.
So chapter 2, yes. People buy people before product and services. And Adam, I know you've heard me say that before. That was actually said by Jim Weichert, who owns Weichert Realtors, Weichert Financial Services, Weichert Title. Really a huge influence in my life. But it's simple, right? People want to do business with somebody they like and trust, right? And they really want local. They don't want, there's convenience of those big box, there's, convenience of going to a Home Depot and Lowe's, but they'd rather, if you don't know how to do something, you're going to talk to your local hardware store. You're going to talk to the guy that lives right down the street that can help you, right? And I think that's the same thing with mortgages. I mean, you're literally you're financing or using it as a financial instrument, the largest asset that you own, right? So what you got to deal with someone that you trust and someone that you like, and
you got to be competitive, right? I always tell everybody, how many times are these lenders doing the same old sales pitch? Well, look, I'm going to get you to the closing table. I'm going to, give you the best customer service. Well, if you're 0.5% higher in the rate, it's hard for a customer to really justify that. But we just had one where we were 0.25% higher than the biggest, credit union in Maryland. And the customer still chose us because it was manageable to understand. And that's where you just have to understand, you got to still be competitive.
Of course. Yeah. And look, we sell debt for a living, right? It's a commodity. Yeah. So you got to be, the price is important, but the service that you provide, and what I love about you you figured it out from the standpoint of like I said, if you build it, they will come, right? You build a great system, you build an unbelievable not only operations to make it smooth and easy up front, but a longevity path, right? Like of continued conversation. You don't think that person's going to think about you and your team, if you're staying in touch every couple months and helping and providing value and guiding them through the post closing process, and no one does that, right? I mean, the big box isn't doing that. They think of you as a loan number, and so I appreciate that fully. I think that's where, the takeaway I think about for our listeners is, believe in your system, build it, but own it, right? And treat it like your own business. Like you said early on is you learned it from your dad a little bit, that entrepreneurial spirit. By the way, I was thinking about it. You must make some bank as a college kid, man. If you were close, I don't know what your dad.
It was wild. It was wild. I had no like. It was. I couldn't spend it quick enough.
I don't know what you were making, but I'm sure I would if my daughter in college was doing loans, I'd probably underpay her. I'd probably pay her like 50 basis points. But I will tell you, if you're doing $1 million a month and you're making you have $5,000 in your pocket in college.
Rick, I was working 2 jobs then. I worked for Red Bull also. So not only was I doing that other job, I had Red Bull. They were giving me a check every 2 weeks for $199 just for passing Red Bull off at campus when I would go to class.
Man, I would just want to hang out with you on Friday and Saturday nights at happy hour, man.
It was fun.
You're making it rain.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And the one thing that I will say is I was smart with it. I saved it. I knew I lived through 06 with, my dad was in the mortgage business. I know how that felt with, seeing, houses get sold and, my dad's like the just temperament, that was a tough time for a lot of people. I actually gained a lot of respect for my dad with how emotional this industry is. I could only imagine going through that and having 3 kids at home and a wife just wild. I tip my hat to that guy and everybody else who kind of braved through it as you did. But I saved. I'm a saver. I'm an investor. I got into investing in properties as soon as I started making money. Nice. I bought an investment property before I bought my primary residence that my wife and I moved into. So that's always been a big focus of mine. And I wish I did more of it. I think everybody probably says that. I wish I bought a house in 2019 or, especially with the 20% appreciation that everybody had.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna retro. You can always, and listeners, if you want to buy investment properties, check out our podcast from a couple months ago where Adam talks about how he owns 50 rental units. So how he's built wealth over real estate and done some creative financing solutions with that as well. So that's a great podcast to go back to on our website.
And while we're talking about this, and I know I mentioned in the beginning, but I've never had to rush to grow my business because I was never I got to make this paycheck tonight because I got to pay my M3 payment, right? And Adam, I can tell he's just a relaxed dude, pretty much hanging out, closing some loans. It helps when you got 50 investment properties rolling in the background. You don't. When I was saying commission breath, that's what I meant. You don't want to also put yourself in a situation where oh my God, I hope this sales goes through so I can make my rent payment. And obviously a lot of people do come from that part, but they don't have to. That's what I said. The best balance of this job is to do this job part-time in the beginning and slowly work in because you can't rely on making a commitment. When you have to, it becomes a really dark place. And trust me, nobody probably wants to work around you at that point.
Well, it's funny, right? It's I equate sales a lot to baseball, right? And imagine you're a baseball player, right? And you're 0 for 3 on the night, on 3 strikeouts, right? On 9 pitches. You're 4th time at bat. What are you thinking? Where's your mindset? Right, you are not feeling good. Now, if it's your 4th time at bat and you're 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and a home run, that ball looks like a beach ball. You're having the night of your life, right? And I think of that.
Good way to look at it.
There's ebbs and flows, and in this business, and we have a loan officer who literally had $2 million of business fall out last week. right? Like, home inspection. Some guy went at the trigger lead, brought an online shopper, and he wasn't able to maintain the deal, right? And that knocked him down for the week, right? And I basically had the same speech with that I'm saying now. It's like you got to just muscle through it, right? Like, baseball players don't think about the stats; they think about elbow up, eyes locked in, hips right? Like, they think about the mechanics, not the results, right? And I think about, with you, right? If you built the right mechanics, right? So there will be ebbs and flows in this business. That's life, right? There's a biorhythm to sales. There's ups and downs, but you don't get desperate, right? That commission breath happens when you're desperate, right? But if you build a system in place personally or business, and if you're a listener like starting out and you're just doing things consistent over and over and over again, you'll be okay, right? It's when that panic sets in, that commission breath, when you become desperate because you're, feeding your family, it can be tough,
So Rick, one of my mentors said to me, he was like, you want to teach people you want them to do so much activity that like it would be almost impossible for them not to be successful. And like, don't run around with your head cut off, but like do so much activity, go to the open houses, make your calls. If you set your goal to make 50, do 50 calls, do 51 calls that week. Like do so much activity that like it's almost impossible for somebody not to refer you business. It's crazy to think. And I noticed it as I brought loan officers on and they left or they moved on to other industries, like how people will just come in and just sit there and just wait for their phone to ring and not do anything. And then, just bitch, I'm not busy. This market sucks, man. These rates are high. Like you have to be productive. There's deals out there. You're in the purchase market. Bitch about rates if you're on the refi side and you can't make that cash out work because of the DTI and you need the rate to be 6.5 to actually save money. But on the purchase side, it's like, what are you upset about? Like reduce their sales, reduce the amount that they're trying to buy. Right? If they want their payment to be X, rates went up. All right, their sales goal just went down a little bit, but they can still buy a house.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Blake, thank you so much for joining us on the Growth Mindset podcast. I really appreciate you. I've always, we've never actually worked together per se, but we've worked side by side, and I've always been in awe of your mindset, and I'm so happy that you were able to come onto our episode.
Well, thanks for having me, gentlemen. It was awesome being with you both.
Yeah, it's really good to get to know you, Blake. So looking forward to continuing that, and thank you so much for carving out the time.
Yeah, I got to pick your brain on those 50 investment properties.
Anytime, brother. You just slowly start to stack it. But, to your point, like you don't want to have that commission breath. Like if you've got one deal in your pipeline and you lose it, that sucks. If you've got 10 deals in your pipeline and you lose one, who cares?
Exactly.
But that's kind of the rentals to me. It's like, I don't get a deal, big deal, whatever. There's another one. Just keep moving it on. And you have to prospect. You have to prospect at such a high level that it's there. So, dude, it's really cool to carve back the onion and see what a top producer such as yourself is doing for your own personal production, but also to help the others around you as well. So really awesome to get to know you, Blake, and looking forward to continuing that.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen.
Well, thank you all. We will, on our sign off, I will let Eric Bowers take it away with the legal stuff.
You've been listening to The Growth Mindset, hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues. Stay tuned for more actionable insights to fuel your career success. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or opinions of Absolute Home Mortgage Corporation or Crown Home Mortgage. The content is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice or an official endorsement by either organization.